Okay, I've got 8:15. We're gonna go ahead and get started. We may, we will get done early today. I shouldn't say may. We will for sure. Last week we talked about student rights. We went through all those cases. You guys got a case for your legal issue for you to study and to present about. I'm going to send this around. It's got them all listed. Just write your name after your case so that I kind of have a list. And then today we're going to talk about what you need to do for the presentation. We'll talk about the rubric. And we'll talk about the lesson plan, what you need to prepare for that. And I'll hand you out a hard copy of it. And then this is also available on Moodle. And I'll talk about with it being in two places, the reason for that. So. Jonathan, Paige, can you guys write your cases just in the chat box for me, and I'll add them to my list. So let's see, where do I want to start? Let's just pull this up. I do have the screen down today. Has everybody noticed that? Ready to go? I'm not going to play any videos for you without the screen and without the video today, hopefully. On Moodle, and I'll show you where this is at later, but on Moodle there is, this document is there. And it's got, you'll be able to make a copy of it basically on a Google Doc, and then you'll be able to type right on it. So when we get down to the part where you'll see some spots for you to fill in information, that'll be available for you digitally, so you don't have to do a hard copy. I'll hand this out here in just a minute. So, legal issues. You'll do a mini presentation for the class. You will tell the class about one or more of the legal issues. In this case, you guys just have one that have shaped U.S. education. Although some of the cases you're going to find when you get in there, it's going to say, this case was built off of a decision previously. So you may want to talk about that previous case because it's going to support what you're talking about for your case. So you're going to tell the story behind the legal case, why it occurred, okay, why was the case brought forth, why are they making a decision on it? Help us understand the issues behind the court's decision. So the court's going to make a decision one way or another, either for the defendant or the plaintiff, and you need to tell why it made those decisions. Tell us the information in your own words. Do not just copy from a website. Some of the stuff you're going to find is going to be very, what I call legalese. It is legal jargon. Okay, you're going to find some legal cases. You're going to read the case file, so to speak, and that case file information, we want it to be in layman's terms or common terms, not legal terms. So try to do your best. If you're having trouble with that, let me know and I'll help you. Use at least two sources of information besides Wikipedia. So you can use Wikipedia, okay, which is a great source. I'll tell you about that here in a minute. But you have to use two other sources, okay? Use APA guidelines for writing down the sources of your information. And I'm not, Let me think about that. I might let you get a pass on that one this time. Write a lesson plan covering what you will present using the lesson plan template. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. You've been given your issue to research already. You will use the legal issues template, which I'll show you here in a minute. You'll use the lesson plan template, which I'll show you here in a minute. And then you're going to upload those two things, the legal issues template and the lesson plan template, to Moodle. You're going to upload those by next Tuesday, okay, 1 week. Because next Tuesday is when we're going to start presenting. So everybody has to have all their information in, even if you're not going to present for another week after that, because we want to make it fair to everybody so that people presenting in 2 weeks don't get extra time to work on their presentation as far as that information is concerned. Okay? Oops. I think I got the right amount there. You're welcome. Oh, wait, did I hand out? Did everybody get a packet, right? Everybody got a stapled packet, right? I didn't hand out an extra. Okay. And then is my sheet still going around with getting it? Okay, good. Okay, I want to look at the grading rubric, okay? It looks kind of big. This rubric that you have right now is what I'm going to use to score you on your presentation. You need to bring this with you to class, because you'll tear it off that packet and you'll hand it to me when I score your presentation. So do not lose this packet, okay? Make sure you have it with you, well, really every day until you present, okay? So on there, it's a basic rubric. How many people have seen a rubric before? Let me ask you that question. Anybody never seen a rubric? Okay, rubrics are great ways to score students. It gives you a way to give them points for their proficiency. So on a scale then, whether they didn't do it at all to whether they did a super duper job, okay? In our case, we're just using 3 categories: unacceptable, basic, and proficient. So unacceptable means that it's not good enough. You need to do better. Basic is like a C, we'll call it, an average, okay? And then proficient then would be your A, okay, in our case. We want to look at it that way. 5 points is an A, 4 points is a B, 3 points is a C. Okay, does that make sense? Basically, that's kind of how it breaks down anyway. So along the left, you have the categories that are being scored, with the first one being, what was the situation? Describe in detail. When I say describe in detail, what do you guys think I mean with describe in detail? Yep. People, okay? So you're gonna have names, dates, locations probably would be important. Okay, there's gonna be some cases that are very close in location to us. There are some that are gonna be farther away here in the US. You wanna set the stage, okay? It's you're building your case or building your presentation around this case. So you wanna give everybody all the background information that you can. The next one says argument on pro side and con side. This is confusing, and this assignment came from Bill Cox. And so I've used Bill's stuff, and I've never gone in and changed it. Pro and con is confusing to students usually. And I don't have a good way to describe it, so we're going to cross that out. Cross out pro and con. Okay. Cross those out. Really what we're looking at is the plaintiff and the defendant, right? You have two sides of the case. And I'm not worried about this pro and con is going to, I'll explain it better when we get to the next, to the lesson plan page or the information page. But really we have two sides of the case, right? That's really what we're worried about. So what is the argument between the two sides of the case? In most of these, you're going to have a school district, thank you, a school district versus a student or a parent, or a school district versus a teacher. Or an administrator possibly, but those are, you have two sides of the case, right? So just remember, there's an argument, there's a disagreement, and you're deciding between those two, or you're explaining between those two. Explain the final decision. How did they decide? Some cases may have gone 2 or 3 places before they reached their final verdict. So maybe they went all the way to the Supreme Court. You want that final decision. What is the final decision on this case? You're welcome to talk about the previous ones, but if it's appealed and appealed and appealed and it goes to the Supreme Court and then the Supreme Court makes a decision, that's your final decision. Okay? How has this decision affected U.S. schools? This is a tough one. This might, it's going to be something that you guys are going to have to read into a little bit. Okay, in some cases, it's some of the cases it's going to be pretty clear. In others, you might have to do a little searching. Okay, and maybe that's a little bit more of a research type situation for you. And if you're having trouble, come talk to me. Why we need to know. That's, as a teacher, I want you to put yourself in the position of a teacher. And I want you to think about why it's important for you to know your case. Why is it important for you to know the decision that happened in your case? Okay. So put yourself in a teacher's shoes and think about why all teachers should know that case. The next two say lesson plan and lesson objective. Okay. I'm going to talk about those when I get to the lesson plan. Some sort of an assessment. I'll talk about that when I get to the lesson plan. And then the next one says presentation, right? Excuse me. The presentation is your presentation that you give in class. You're going to get some points on that, okay? So you're going to get information. You're going to get points for all the information that you have and points for how you present it. So let's talk about that right now, actually. So if we talk about presenting in front of a class or in front of a group, what are the important things that we need to remember? Dylan, give me one thing. Okay. Volume. Something that I talk about with my student teachers all the time, every time I go see one, is I talk about their volume and their tone. Okay. What's tone? What's tone? Right. So how your inflection of your voice, right? So whether you are presenting it in, you know, a friendly, welcoming manner, or what you might call a normal lecture manner versus the inflection in your voice. So that's why I talk about student teachers a lot, is volume. Okay. What else? Max, give me another one. Okay, I like that. Right, you're prepared, right? You've done your homework. You have read through your case, you understand it, you understand the two sides of the case, you understand the background so that you're able to speak about it, okay? Madison, give me another one. Okay, good. I'm gonna use a different word. I'm gonna use engaging. Engaging or interactive, okay? How can you get your audience into your case or into your presentation, into your lesson is what we're calling it. It's a mini lesson. Okay, so maybe it's asking questions. Maybe it's having people group up. Maybe there's a survey on the screen or a mini quiz, or maybe you use a Kahoot. Maybe you use something else. There's lots of different ways to engage students, but an engaging lesson, important. Okay, what else? Delaney, give me another one. What's that? Eye contact, perfect. Eye contact, looking at your audience, facing your audience. If I spent my whole lesson up here like this, it would be pretty bad with you guys just looking at the back of my head, right? You want to, that's part of the engaging part, is looking at your audience. It's super important now. Why is it more important now than it was 6 months ago? What can't you see on my face? Your mouth. So now your expressions with your eyes and your face become even more important as you look at audiences, because you can't tell whether I'm smiling or frowning by looking from my nose down. But there are expressions that you guys know that you don't think about that come from your eyes, okay? What else can we do? Okay. Yep. Body language. Okay. That goes with that, you know, that idea. I'm going to put tone up here, but that idea of tone as well, body language expresses that. If you're very aggressive up front with how you do things in class, is going to be different than something where I'm sharing my information, right? We're talking about it. We're going through it. That's all body language. Talking with your hands, the manner in which you move around the room. Okay. What else? How about this one? Pace. What's pace? Yes, the speed. Are you talking really fast? Try to get through it as fast as you can. Okay, volume, confidence, engaging, eye contact. No, you want to make sure that you're giving a good pace that students are able to follow along, understand. You don't want to be too slow though, right? Okay. I know sometimes I get too fast and I try to cram too much stuff in. Okay, so pace is important. Anything else? Those are all good. Let me ask you this question. How should I look? Ooh, okay. How does a professional look? Okay. David, give me another one. How does a professional look? Yeah. Okay. Do I have to have a suit on or a formal dress? No. Right? I think clean is important and neat is important. I think we could try to look, I know you guys probably don't have a closet full of dress clothes or anything, but we could try to look more professional when we present. And I would encourage you guys to do that in every single class. Okay? So you're going to take lots of ed classes and other classes that you might have to speak in. And I will guarantee you that your professors will notice if you wear a polo shirt and slacks, or Gosh, for girls, I don't even know what you would even call it. A skirt and a blouse or whatever. You could wear khakis and a blouse or a shirt as well. But as opposed to a sweatshirt and shorts or yoga pants and a t-shirt, ball caps on, I guarantee you, if you would dress even with a polo shirt and jeans, I'm gonna look better than if I have yoga pants, jogging pants, shorts, sweatshirt, t-shirt, hat, etc. Right? I guarantee you, your professors will notice that. It will pay dividends as you present in front of a class if you look the part. I want you to think about looking like a teacher. Okay? It'll pay dividends. Okay, good. I think we killed that idea. So your rubric actually has 2 rubrics on it. It's another Bill Cox leftover that I didn't change. So we'll just leave that for now. Okay. Let's go to the legal issues template. Okay. I know it's small for you, but I'm doing that for the people at home so they can see the whole thing there on the screen. Legal issues template. This page. This is where you're going to put all your information. This is where you're going to look things up and kind of give me the information in a kind of a report form, but more of a note style. Okay. So what is the issue? You just give your information and you give me, how do you know your resource goes over there on the right? We'll talk about resources here in a few minutes. Okay. When and where did the situation happen? Okay, these are all background things, right? This is all part of your buildup. What were the arguments on both sides of the question? So there again, pro and con. You can cross that pro and con out if you want because it confuses people. When 2 sides have an argument or disagreement, right? You usually have, you might choose a side, right? Well, it's not always clear on which one is the pro or the positive side and which one would be the con or against that positive, right? And we don't want to put ourselves in a position of choosing that necessarily. So don't worry about pro and con. Think about the 2 sides of the case though. You have a plaintiff and a defendant. Okay. What was the final decision? How has this decision affected schools today? We already talked about these, right? In the rubric. What is something that surprised you about this issue and what you found out? That's a new one. We haven't talked about that yet. So as you read your case, as you go through your case, talk about what has surprised you. What was something in there that you didn't realize? Maybe it's the location. Maybe it's the year. Some of these cases that were settled early on it was quite a while ago that they were decided. Okay. Maybe there's another, maybe it's the issue itself that surprised you. And then the last one, what do you think is the most important thing teacher candidates, college students, need to know about this? That's you guys. Teachers, what do they need to know about this? That's that, I talked about that in the rubric. Okay. So this is where you're going to put your information. You're going to put your resources over here. Now, if you have, remember you have to have at least 2 resources beyond Wikipedia, right? If you don't use Wikipedia, you still need 2 resources. Okay. I would encourage you to get at least 3, if not 4, but it's up to you on how many. Over here, where you're listing those, and I'll show you, I'll talk about that here in just a second. let's say maybe these first 2 or 3 were the same resource. You can use the old draw the line or quotations. But then if you have to go to a different resource on number 4 or whatever, make sure you list that. And then if you go back to that first one, make sure you list it again. Okay. I'll understand if there are some blank spots underneath that means it's the same one. But once you change and then change back, you're going to have to list them again. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. Let's talk resources. What do teachers tell us, or have they told you about Wikipedia? Okay. Anybody else heard that in class? Has anybody heard, it's not reliable. People can just go on there and change whatever they want, right? Okay. I'll give you a different perspective. There's a gentleman by the name of Alan November, and he's an educator, and he's done a lot of research on the use of the internet and technology, and he's looked into search. Like he's like a search guru as far as using search engines and all kinds of things. And through his research, he's found that even Harvard Medical School, okay, we probably look up to Harvard Medical School as one of the top in the nation. Harvard Medical School tells its students, its medical students, when they go out to residency, which is kind of like a student teaching situation, except they're doctors and they're in a hospital or a doctor's office and they're doing doctor things. If you're in residency and no one is around and you don't know the answer, the first place you check should be Wikipedia. Okay? Because it's the most up-to-date information probably anywhere. And despite what your teachers are all afraid of as far as it being changed, it is highly scrutinized. There are people that go through Wikipedia all the time. You can't just go on there like you could before and just enter information and have it on there for forever. Things are checked really quickly, okay? We're going to look at, we'll go to my favorite, Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln has a ton of information on here. And I'm going to show you a couple things about Wikipedia that are great that you can use in this class or others. All those blue highlighted words are all links, okay? Those are all links to other pages within our, you can click on them and get quick information. You can open it up and get a Wikipedia page, okay? So not only does it have our information on Abraham Lincoln, but it's got all these links to where we can go and get more supportive information. That's going to be the same on your legal case as well, okay? They always have that summary along the side, which is always great. And the other thing that is really kind of my favorite is they have citations, okay, throughout. They're all numbered. And if I want to know about when he was admitted to the Illinois bar, I can click on that. It's going to take me down to the references page, and it's going to tell me where that was found. This is actually from a book. Oops. I think that's the book. And I can click on the source, and I can actually, in some cases, depending on what the source is, in this case, I can find out what the book is. I can go to the library, I can pick it up. Okay, maybe find it online somewhere. In other cases, it's going to take you to other web pages where they have the information itself. So even if you were worried about Wikipedia, which you shouldn't be, I mean, look at how many resources they have on Abraham Lincoln. It's unreal. 362. Then they have a bibliography of all the books. Even if you're afraid of using the Wikipedia site, you can come here and just go to the references and pick out those references and go to those pages or to go to those books or those papers and get your information from there. Okay. Then you're going to the original source, right? Or you could weigh whether that source is good or bad. Okay. So Wikipedia, it's a wonderful resource, and I would encourage you all to use it. One of the cases that I took off was the oops, where do I want to go? Here we go. Scopes trial. Does anybody know what the Scopes trial is? Madison's shaking her head yes. What was it? Yes, it was about teaching evolution in the classroom. It's a really interesting case. I took it off our list kind of because one, it can be, it's kind of a confusing case, and two, unless you're a real science person, maybe it's not as interesting as I think it is. So they have all these links here within that Scopes trial, right? John Thomas Scopes, he was a teacher, okay? Dayton, Tennessee, charged May 5th, 1925, violating Tennessee's Butler Act, which prohibited the teaching of human evolution in Tennessee schools. He was tried in a case known as the Scopes trial, in which he was found guilty. He actually lost. And they have all these links to the resources. So you see there's 113 just on the Scopes trial itself. So not a bad place for you guys to start when you guys are looking for information, okay? Okay, that's my Wikipedia, my big long Wikipedia spiel, okay? So now I want to talk about lessons. And we talked a little bit about all these things of what you can do to present, right? I want to talk about what we have in a lesson that makes a good lesson. So I want you to think back to school, K-12 school. I guess it could be college as well. What makes a good lesson? And some of them are going to overlap with things that we've already said. But what do we want to do? When we're teaching a lesson, what are the things that we want to do to make sure that our students are learning the material? What do we start with? It could be a question. Or that's what you want to do, ask questions. Is that what you said? Okay. Definitely want to ask questions. You want your students to think, right? Okay. What do I want to start with? If I'm making a lesson, what do I want to start with? Max, what do you think?
It might be different, but when I was early childhood, we always started off with the phrase, the children will be able to.
Okay.
So what are they going to be looking into this lesson?
Okay. A goal, an objective, and what we'll talk about later in this term are standards, right? We have to have an end point that we're looking at, okay? And know, okay, so for today, my goal for you is to understand what's going to go on this form, okay? What you're going to do to prepare for your lesson. That's my goal. That was my goal before I decided how we were going to do this, okay? And it can be very simple like I'm doing today. We're just talking about it. We're putting things on the board. We're brainstorming. We're going through the form so you can see all the different spots, right? I'm showing you information on the screen as far as resources, okay? But we have that goal or that objective in mind. My students will be able to complete their research and complete their form so that they're prepared for their lesson, right? Okay? And to do that, we're going to ask some questions. What else are we going to do in a good lesson? What do you guys like to do in lessons as students? Maybe I should ask you that question. What's that?
Feel organized.
Okay, you want to be organized? You need to have a plan, right? Okay. A focus. This is what I'm going to do. So if you guys are presenting, remember I said it's going to be kind of similar to what we did on Thursday. You guys are going to present a case. You're going to talk about both sides. You're going to talk about the decision. And you're going to talk about its effect, right? So you kind of have a plan. You have a sequence of events. Right? Would we agree? Okay. What happens if I don't have a sequence of events, if I don't have a plan? Could be. Could be. If you don't know what you're going to say, right? That could be a problem. Sloppiness, right? If you don't have a plan, like, what if I didn't give you this today for you to look at? It would have been a little bit harder, right? I could have had it on the screen, but it would have been not as focused, right? So we have a plan, we have a sequence of events, we're organized, we have a focus. Our focus is based on our goal, our objective, our standards. I'll go back to, I think it was either Delaney or Madison, I can't remember. Engaging, right? We want a lesson that's going to engage the students in some manner. It could be a lot, like when we break into groups and you guys are going through materials, or it could be engaging by simply asking questions and calling on people in the class to get answers, okay? What else?
You almost have to force people to be involved.
I'm going to use that word engaging. I don't really like force.
Like when you tell us to break up into groups.
Right. I understand what you're saying. Let's see. So engaging is one thing. Engaging is getting your interest, right? We'll go off Mr. Davis's idea here. We'll involve students, okay? And sometimes you're going to say, okay, I want you three guys to pair up. I want you three to pair up. I want you three to pair up. Okay? So you're forcing some interaction, I guess. I don't like that word really in education, but you're definitely creating situations for students to work together in some cases. Okay? Does that make sense? What else? How do I know if my students have learned? How do I know if you guys understand this? Through their responses? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Student response. Okay, I'll take that. Definitely. You have an assessment? Madison, what were you going to say? Right. Okay, we'll talk about that here in a second. That's a good one. An assessment, yes. Some sort of assessment. And I'm going to talk about some terms that you won't learn about yet for a little while. I'm running out of space. Let's just do it here. We want to talk about two types of assessment. Formative and summative. And you guys don't have to write these down if you don't want. It's up to you. They are important for your career, but they're not necessarily important specifically to this class. Formative and summative. A formative assessment is like a quick check. It's low stakes. It's not worth points. So maybe I have you complete something in class, or one of those situations where you're doing, okay, here's a problem. 7 plus 7 equals. I want you to all do that on your whiteboards or on your paper. Okay, and then what do? I can walk around the class. I can see, yep, Delaney's got 14. Mr. Davis has 14. I can check those formative checks, right? Or, and those are low stakes. That's a way for me to easily check for understanding, right? So when we talk about assessment, check for understanding also. Okay. So low stakes, not worth a lot of points, usually quick. Okay. Summative, or what we might call high stakes. I'm just going to say more involved. Summative might be a quiz over information, or a test, or a worksheet that's worth a lot of points. Those would be summative assessments. Things at the summation at the end. Okay. You don't always do summative checks at an end, but usually they are. Okay. So some type of assessment. You want to see what your students learned. You guys are going to turn this in next Tuesday on Moodle. Okay. That's kind of a summative assessment. It's worth a lot of points. It's part of the rubric, right? Your information that is involved here is coming from this sheet. A lot of it. Okay. So that's a summative assessment. You guys aren't really going to do summative assessments. You might do a little mini quiz, but of course we're not doing them for points. If David wants to give you guys a quiz over his case, it's not going to go on the grade book, right? So ours are going to be more formative in nature, okay? But with your lesson that you guys are going to teach next week and the next week after that, you should have some sort of a way to assess your students to make sure that they are understanding what you are teaching them about that case, okay? And Madison had a good idea. I don't want 16 exit tickets, but exit tickets are good. Can you explain to us, Madison, what an exit ticket is?
It's like 1 or 2 questions that you filled out before you left class.
Right. So maybe I give you a little slip of paper. Everybody has a little slip of paper. And there's 2 questions on there. Is Wikipedia a good site to use for your research? And what's the difference between formative and summative? Maybe those are my 2 questions. So I give that to you with like 4 or 5 minutes left of class. You guys write your answers down. As you get up and leave, you put them in a pile right here. Okay. Then I can take those exit tickets. If I was a teacher and I was going to teach the next day, I could look through and say, oh, yep. They think Wikipedia is good. They're still confused on formative and summative. So then what can I do with that information? The next day when I teach, I can go back to formative and summative if I need to make sure that we're getting that lesson understood, okay? That's a formative check. It's quick. It's really easy, okay? What's the opposite? Exit tickets are great. There's another one. You could do an entrance ticket, which you could give them at the beginning. Then they're going to fill those out, and then what you can actually do then is during the lesson, maybe there's a point where you're going to have students talk amongst each other. You can go through those real quick, a real quick check, and say, oh, did they retain what I taught them the day before, yes or no? And if they haven't, then it's something you can go over. If they have, you can say, good, we're going to move on. They get it. They know how to do 7 plus 7. We're going to move on to 7 plus 8. Okay? Does that make sense? So, with your lesson, you need to have some sort of assessment to see if your students learned. Okay? So let's look at the lesson plan. Which looks like this. Okay. So at the top it says objective. What will students create, produce, or be able to do at the end of this lesson? Remember, I've already erased it, but remember, that's our goal. That's our standard. What do I want the students to be able to do? You guys are going to think about the same thing with your classmates in here. What do I want them to be able to understand? What's my goal for me teaching about the Scopes monkey trial? Is it really about the teaching of evolution, or is it really about teachers being able to teach what they think is right as experts in their field? And it doesn't really have to do anything with evolution. Maybe it's really just that idea of the teacher is the professional and they're the one teaching the lesson. They should be in charge of what is taught to the students. Okay. So what is your objective? Number 2, student assessment, formative and or summative. Oh, there's those terms, right? How will you know what the students learned, that the students learned what you expected them to learn? Go back and check to see that this matches your objective. So if you do an exit ticket, you can do an exit ticket about your topic, your objective, right? And then you can look through there and say, oh man, I must have done a really good job. Everybody got it, okay? That could be, like I said, it could be a Kahoot. It could be just 3 questions you put on the board and you ask the students and they raise their hands and they answer them. But you need to have some sort of way to assess the class, okay? The next one, materials. Make a complete list of materials, everything you will need to have in order to teach this lesson. And you guys are only doing a really mini lesson, right? It's not going to take you maybe, it's probably going to be between, I would say between 5 and 15 minutes probably to do your lessons, right? Do you have materials? Maybe you want to hand out a little half sheet of a reading for your students. Maybe you're going to use that later. Maybe you've got your questions on there, but you need to think about those things. Today I had to think about making sure I had copies of this to hand out to you. That's my materials that I used, okay? You may or may not have materials, okay? If you could have a handout, I would encourage you. It's not a bad idea. Sources, where did you get your information from? It says cite APA style. I'm not going to teach you APA style. Most of you, probably 99.99% of you, will get your information from the internet, okay? For internet information, what I would like to see is the web page URL and a title of that web page would be the best 2 things, okay? And something to keep in mind is, if I go to Google and type in my guy, Abraham Lincoln, and I go to history.com for some information, is my source Google? Dylan's shaking his head. Max says no. Why? Oh, that's where I searched. Google gave me this information. It gave me the link. Is Google not my source? Why is Google not my source? Right. How about if I just type history.com? Is that my source? It came from history.com, right? How many people think yes, you would be fine turning in a paper with a resource that just said history.com, Abraham Lincoln? Right. Your address at the top, okay? This is my resource. I need the page you pulled the information from, okay? As a URL for that resource. And this may not have a real title. I would probably say history.com, Abraham Lincoln is my title. And my URL, of course, is history.com/topics/US presidents/Abraham Lincoln.html or whatever it is. Okay? Everybody's clear on that, right? Okay. I know that can be confusing. Like I said, I'm not going to teach APA style. I probably should, but I'm not going to. Procedure. That's where you're going to list what you're going to do. That's that sequence of events, the organization piece, your plan. Tell step by step what the teacher must do to teach this lesson. Write it clearly enough that a sub could follow it. What's a sub? Substitute teacher. If you're ill, if you have to leave for an appointment, if you're not available to be there for your class, you get a substitute teacher in there, and you need to have plans for them so they understand what they're doing. So, a couple things to consider. What hook will you use to get students immediately interested in this lesson? That engaging piece. Am I going to use a shocking fact? Am I going to use, am I going to have people think about their own lives and reflect upon their own position? How are you going to hook those students? And then how will you check for understanding along the way? And that we had, I think it's ask questions. That's a good way to just kind of engage your class. You can do, everybody raise your hand if you believe this. You can do a thumbs up, thumbs down. There's lots of ways to check for those pieces along the way. So it says make sure to include all of the information that you researched on the legal issues template. So you have two templates. This one's your information. This one's your lesson. So you're going to tell me in your procedure, I'm going to start with a hook on evolution and whether people believe in evolution or not. I'm going to ask them that. Then I'm going to take them back to 1925 in my description of the case. And I'm going to talk about all the sides of the case. And you're just going to give me really a bulleted list of your steps of what you're going to do for your lesson, all the way through to your final piece. And at the end, I'm going to issue everybody an exit ticket, and it will have these two questions. Okay? Does that make sense? Questions. Okay? You'll still have Thursday. We'll be in class Thursday. Okay? So you, if you have questions, you can surely ask them then as well. When is this due? Next Tuesday. Let me show you that here. Turn it to the student view. Oops, I could have done that. So there's really only three things on there right now. This is legal, presentation, paperwork. Completed paperwork is due Tuesday, October 6th. When you click on that, it should ask you for, at this point, it should ask you if you want to make a copy of it. And page, I have changed that, so you should have access to make a copy now. You'll click make a copy. That'll give you a Google Doc copy, okay? You can type right on it. Complete your information on the two documents, okay? Save it. You can download it and save it as a Word doc, a PDF, whatever, and then upload it to Moodle by Tuesday, okay? So that's step one. That's really not step one. That's kind of step two. There is an article review for Thursday, okay? It's a short reading about something that occurred in South Dakota. It might have been last year. Either might be 2019 or 2018. Read the article, answer the questions that are presented with it, okay? That's due for Thursday. So you have Article 4 due Thursday, and then you have your two templates due Tuesday, okay? It's a fair amount of work for us, right? We haven't really had a ton of work in here. This is a big one. This is a key assignment for you as well. This information gets shared. You have to get a C or better on this, okay? It's important that you do a good job. What else was I going to show you? I was going to show you one other thing. I can't remember what it was. Guess that's it. Questions? What's due Thursday? Oh, go ahead. If you decide you want to write it, you have to take a picture and upload the picture to Moodle. Yep. Everything in here that we do, I mean, there's nothing in here really that we'll turn in a paper format. Okay. You're welcome to do it that way. You just have to take a photo of it and upload it. So what's due Thursday? Article review. What's due Tuesday? Right. And I will send out a link sometime this week. I'm not sure when. That will be the sign up for presentations. And it will look like, oops. It'll just be a Google form, okay? It'll have dates. It'll say Tuesday, October 6th, Thursday, October 8th, Tuesday, October 13th, Thursday, October 15th, and there'll be slots underneath them. And you just sign up for one of those slots, one of those time slots, okay? But since all your information is due at the same time, right? Nobody's getting extra time to work on their stuff, okay? Questions? Okay. It's pretty good. 20 minutes early. Well, not quite. 19. Okay. Have a good week. We'll see you on Thursday. We'll talk about that legal case and a few other things.